Hi guys, my name is Nishi, and today for the DieHard TryHards Smoke Signal Challenge, I'll be elevating a classic apple pie. I'm going to use some pie dough to decorate the top of the pie with 3.14 sort of decorations because March 14th is coming up and I thought it'd be fun to play into the whole Pie Day Pun Challenge thing. So let's get started and you'll see what I mean. Okay, to start out, you're going to want to measure out your flour, and the measurements are down in the article below, but you're going to want to measure out your flour and your butter. This is a relatively simple crust recipe, so there's only really 2 ingredients, but once you measure out your butter, make sure you cube it into pieces so it's easier to mix together. Then when you're mixing it together with your hands, make sure they're clean first. You can add ice water to make it easier to bind. Then you're going to separate into 2 pieces and start rolling them out. When you're rolling them out, you just want to make sure that they're thin enough where you could lay it on a plate, but not too thin since you will be rolling them again later on. So add them to a plate and do it one by one, and once you finish both, layer them on top of each other, and then go ahead and put that in your fridge to cool down. Then you're going to want to take your apples. I used 4 of them. You can slice them. Technically, you're supposed to peel them too, but I forgot and it still turned out really good, so don't worry about that step. After that, you're going to want to coat those apples with the mixture down below, and once you finish coating them, go ahead and leave them in the fridge for them to soak. Then you're going to want to take out the crust that you had left in the fridge and let it rest to room temperature for a while, and then you're going to want to really just roll out that dough into this one thin cohesive piece of dough and then roll that onto your rolling pin. This is just going to make it easier for us to later put down on our greased pan. Really, this putting down the dough on the greased pan is kind of hard, but just go slowly and make sure your dough doesn't rip. Then you're going to want to trim off the excess dough. I used a pair of scissors, and just make sure you save that dough because you're going to want to use it for your crust later on. Then I used a fork to poke out all the holes in the dough, and this step is honestly really soothing, especially if you bake a pie at 2 a.m. You're going to want to take your apples out again from the fridge and just layer them into your pie. They should all be cinnamony and coated, so the smell is really good at this point. Once you're done with that, you're going to want to take that excess dough that you had from trimming the crust and you're going to roll that out into thin pieces, and of course use your fork to poke holes in them so that it's easier when baking, but just use some of that excess dough and really try to mold it into a crust. It might look a little weird, but trust me, it tasted fine. And my finished pie crust kind of reminded me of Pangea, but honestly, I think that was half of the appeal. Once you finish with the pie crust, you'll still have some dough left over, so go ahead and use that for your designs. I got this inspiration from Cupcake Wars, where they use like fondant to decorate their cupcakes, but this time I'm using pie crust to decorate my pie crust. Once you have all of that ready, go ahead and preheat your oven and pop your pie in once the oven is ready. It turns out pretty good, so let's see what it looks like. Okay, this is the final version. This over here is the DieHard TryHard sort of symbol, and then this is the pie symbol, and this is 3.1415, and then dot dot to resemble how the decimal keeps going. And this is the smoke signal mountains, the classic smoky logo. I thought the pie would turn out to be a little bit cuter, but that's okay. I think the symbols really pop out, and no matter what happens, this pie still smells really good. So either way, I'm counting it as a win.
Hi everyone! So I'm going to be making I'm going to be trying to be making a lemon meringue pie. We'll see how it turns out. First, I'll be making the crust. So I'm going to put almonds, and then some graham crackers, and we're just going to put that in a food processor. So it's looking pretty good. I mean, there's still some big pieces in there that I kind of want to get rid of. Alright, cool. So it's looking pretty good. So I'm just going to add this to a big bowl. And, okay. I love graham crackers. They're like my favorite. Now, we're just going to add some sugar. And then I'm going to melt down this butter. And we're going to pour this in, and that'll kind of help it set and everything. So now I'm just going to basically whisk together stuff with my trusty whisk. So we're pouring this melted butter in. This is like 2 tablespoons of butter, I believe. And we're just gonna be incorporating into, so this is like gonna be our like crust. So now I'm just like putting it down here. It's not looking like a ton, but I think it'll shape up. So this is our pie. I'm gonna pop it in the oven for 8 minutes to pre-bake. And while that's happening, I'm gonna start on our actual lemon part. So basically what we're gonna be doing is making the lemon part of the cake now. So I don't know why I said cake, pie. We're gonna be whisking together a cup of sugar, some flour, then we have some cornstarch, and then some salt. So basically what we're just gonna be doing is kind of whisking all of that together. So now we're gonna kind of stir in our water. So this is a 1.5 cup of water. And then I'm also gonna be adding in, we have 2, like juice from 2 lemons and then zest from 2 lemons. So I'm just like incorporating it, and now we're gonna put it on medium-high heat. And then we're just gonna bring to stirring frequently, and then we're gonna just wait till it comes to a boil. So that's fun. So that's pie crust. I'm gonna go get it. So it's totally not set. That's okay. It's okay. It's like not at all set. Okay, it's really starting to thicken. It's, lemon meringue mixture. Okay, so I'm just gonna add the butter now. Now what I'm gonna do is add this to the egg yolks. It's supposed to be like half the egg mixture, but now I'm gonna just like whisk in the egg mixture here. Okay. So now we're just gonna wait for it to kind of boil and thicken. It's like pretty thick already, so like I don't wanna mess with it too much. But you know, it has to be like pretty thick. So I don't know, I have no idea what thickness it should be. So now I'm just gonna take this off heat, and I'm just gonna pour onto this. Oh, it's looking so good. It's looking fire. Okay. So now I'm gonna take this, I'm just gonna pop this in the fridge. Okay. Love that. Okay, so I'm just kind of letting it sit there in the fridge for a little bit. And great, so now we're done with that whole portion. And yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to be putting it in the fridge, but we'll see. You know what? It's like kind of a test. So we're done with the cooking portion. Now this is our stand mixer, and I'm gonna be making the meringue. So I just have some egg whites here, and basically I'm gonna pop those in and just start whisking, getting it foamy. That's really the target here. Yeah, I think it's good. It might be like a little overdone. I think so. It looks really stiff actually, so I think we're good. But great. Okay, so now we're gonna be taking out the pie from the fridge. Like I could pipe it, but I don't really want to do that. I don't think I have the skills to do that. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of put these dollops on, and then okay. Now it's gonna bake for 10 minutes. Okay, so we have our lemons here. Yeah, so we're just gonna go in, and I'm gonna just try to cut some thin slices that I'm just gonna kind of layer on top. It's kind of like this lemon meringue beauty kind of situation. Okay, it's looking so cute. Cool. Okay, so here is the final product, and it's just once again, it's a lemon meringue pie with a salted almond and graham cracker crust. And so I'm gonna cut into it and see how it is. But yeah.
Hi, I'm Helen Tian, a staff writer for the MSJ Smoke Signal, and today I'll be making salted caramel apple pie. So I'll be making the pie crust, and then I'll be making the salted caramel, and then I'll put that together with apples, and it'll form a salted caramel apple pie. So let's get to it. So I gathered all my ingredients. So our first step is to make the pie crust. So I do have this box mix of pie crust, which I actually didn't know existed, but we'll be following the steps over here. So I'm just gonna leave it like this, and I'm gonna put some saran wrap over this, and hopefully we can use it. Okay, so now that I'm done with making the pie crust, or the dough that's going to become pie crust, we're going to move on to making caramel. And this will actually be from scratch. Okay, so now we're going to make our caramel. And I have my recipe right over here. And this is the saucepan, and over here I have my ingredients. Honestly, I'm not sure how it's supposed to taste, but it kind of just tastes like sugar and butter to me. So hopefully that's right. I don't really know. But now that we finish our caramel, we're just going to let it sit and thicken a little bit. And instead of letting it cool for like 5 weeks, we're going to use it straight away. So right now, we're going to go make the actual filling of the pie with the apples. So let's go. Okay, so now that we've done our pie crust and our caramel, we're going to do apples. So obviously the first step to making the apple filling is to cut our apples. So right now I have 3 Honeycrisp apples and 2 Granny Smith apples. So we're just going to use a variety for better flavoring, as the recipe over here says. And we're just going to cut and slice them accordingly. So what you want to do is peel off the skin and also decore it, I guess. So now we're just going to go ahead and cut each of them. You're supposed to decore them, but I don't have like a decore device. So usually what I do is just cut around the core. I want to cut them into small cubes, but you can cut them however you want. It doesn't really matter, as long as they end up in the pie. Okay, so now we just have to add our other ingredients and half a cup of granulated sugar. So we need 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. And next is going to be 1/4 cup of flour. So we have our cinnamon over here, 1.5 teaspoons. Okay, so now we're going to toss this together. But we're going to set this aside and come back to roll our dough and combine everything together. Okay, so now that we finished kind of making everything, we're going to combine all of them together. And the first step for that is actually rolling out the pie crust to fit into our pans. So now what we want to do is use a knife or scissors to cut off the excess sides. I'm going to put in our filling. Okay, so I'm going to preheat the oven to 440 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're going to pour in our half cup of caramel and make the topping. Oh, sorry. I'm going to preheat my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so for our design, I thought of making a unit circle because Pi Day is also Pi Day. So I'm going to roll out the extra dough that we had and cut some strips to hopefully make a unit circle. Okay, so I have finished my unit circle. I'll put it in the oven and wait 20 minutes, and then I'll test it, and then let's see if we have a good pie. Okay, so we've brought out our apple pie now, and it looks pretty good. It looks pretty good. I heated it up a little bit after I let it rest, so I can eat warm apple pie. And I'm gonna try to cut a slice out and put some ice cream and caramel on top and try it out. Okay, so the pie isn't completely terrible. Yeah, it's okay. I don't think my crust was the best. Also, I feel like the apples kind of made everything soggy. But the caramel and the ice cream were good on top of it. So, I think it was an okay salted caramel apple pie. Thank you.
Hello world, my name's Sabrina, and today I'm going to be making a apple pie, specifically mini ones in these little muffin tins. So I'm not really following a recipe. I couldn't really find one that required the minimal amount of effort and that I liked. So I'm just gonna go by my own whim today. So I think I'm just gonna pre-bake it a little bit so we can have like a good in-between. So it needs to be enough to fit the edges and the bottom. So is there like a cutter of some choice or some thing I can press to get like a good enough size? What about this? It might be somewhat too big, but I think big is better than small. Okay. So now I have this pie with a bunch of circles in it. So I'm gonna re-roll it. I hope my hands are cold enough because I've heard that pie crust should be relatively cold, but I don't know if that stands the same for pre-made pie crust. So I have a Fuji and a Honeycrisp. Fuji is my favorite apple. Fun fact about me. And Honeycrisp is what I saw a lot of recipes use. So I'm going to cut up these apples and... Okay, so I've cut up my apples. They're not very uniform in size of cut, but I mean, a little crisp of an apple in an apple pie never hurt anybody. So now I'm going to squeeze lemon juice on them to prevent them from browning. So you're supposed to add sugar, and then you add cinnamon, nutmeg, a little bit of flour, and then mix. So maybe I should add a little bit more cinnamon, maybe more sugar in, I don't know. Oh, and then I also need a pinch of salt. Now I'm going to let this sit for like 30 minutes. Then I'm gonna take my apple pie filling, just scoop it in. Now that I've filled up my apple pie tins, I'm going to re-roll out this pie dough and create some like lattices and braids and stuff for the tops of the pies. I'm trying to remember how to do a lattice in my head. I'm gonna be honest, I don't quite remember. Ugh, I am mastering. Okay, I'm gonna use some egg white with a little bit of egg yolk and some heavy whipping cream. I think this is a paintbrush, but it's washed and it's in the kitchen, so it's just... But now that I have the egg wash on, it says to sprinkle some sugar on top so it creates that crispiness or whatever. Okay, I'm done. So, says to bake it at 450 degrees until it's golden brown, which should be like 15 minutes. So let's hope that's the case. So it's been around 20 minutes-ish, and I've let the mini pies cool down. And they look like that. I already ate one, I'm totally gonna be honest, and they taste like not bad. And then you can see like the braided one. Oh. I'm gonna put that back on. I'm not gonna lie, my presentation's not that great. I thought it turned out better. So to solve that, I'm gonna pile on some buttloads of whipped cream and try to hide the ugly parts, and then take some photos and call it a day.